Okay, good morning. This is Memorial Day. On Saturday, I did a little day trip. Um, and I went to near Leesburg. This is a picture of Stonebridge High School, where there was a little incident recently in the news. It's a baseball field, I think. So might be the gym. And then there's Clyde's Restaurant, which is right next to the Loudoun County Public Schools. It's kind of interesting to have a restaurant like that right next to it. And there's some buildings, and there's downtown Leesburg. Uh, went to just went to see what that's like again. Haven't been there in a while, and I'll show a quick video that I made. Um, that's the picture, and then there's another one, high quality one with the Sony camera. And here's the video. Here's the headquarters for Loudoun County Public Schools in Loudoun County, Virginia, which is the next county west of Fairfax County. Goes all the way to the Blue Ridge Mountains. Contains the Bull Run Mountains in the middle of Leesburg. And there was a recent dispute and a meeting here where parents were very up in arms about some boys being disciplined for complaining about a female being in their locker room who identified as male. And so I just thought I would film it. Over near the premises is a Clyde's Restaurant, which I think is interesting that it would be so close to the premises of a school, a county school system. Okay. And go back to me talking there. Yeah, and there was a story. There's a story about in WJLA and on WJLA about the incident where there were, I think there were a few boys, and then a biological female came into the locker room. Might have been fully developed because not very many people are taking the puberty blockers anymore. And the boys maybe made a video or complained. The boys were disciplined because the policy at Loudoun County Schools allows this to be done. And so that's sort of that obviously is not very acceptable to a lot of parents. I went to a couple of board meetings, I think a board meeting in the fall of 2021 about this. When it wasn't as clear at how extreme it could sound then as it is now. Again, um, it's if you don't allow, as I had said in a previous video, if you don't allow puberty blockers to start at all, then if people are going to enforce gender identity in locker rooms and restrooms in a public school, they'll be fully developed, which is in high school, which is even more problematic. It's amazing that would go on to me. And so the only acceptable way to handle it would be to have totally separate areas for students who identified other than their biological sex, and have totally private dressing areas and build totally separate areas. That would be the only acceptable answer. It would seem to me that would be quite expensive, but maybe that could be done. It seems that again, a lot of this, to me, wanting to have a different identity publicly for young people is about not believing you can't compete with others of your own biological sex who are simply more able to do the things normally expected of the biological sex, are better looking or better able to get dates or better able to do the, to do aggressive things if males, better able to physically stronger or more inclined to have children as females or whatever, if you're not as inclined to do what's expected, you might want to have a different legal designation, even though the lobby, the TQ lobby insists on that gender identity is real and we can't question it, and that's really another political reason having to do with using of equal protection rather than due process is what that eventually amounts to. And it could be, if you went through transition or something, it could be more problematic to fit the norms of what you're transitioning to than where you came from, it seems to me. That's what I would have thought, because I was gender nonconforming when I was growing up in the 50s and 60s, but that might have been largely because of having the measles, which may have put me behind physically. I think that might have been a big part of it. So there can often be totally separate explanations having nothing to do with gender that cause these kinds of problems. But that's just, I wanted to just mention that day trip I took and show you those pictures and show you those that reference. And we'll talk about a couple of other things. There's a deep fake law that Congress has passed. I don't think that's going to mean anything to most people because I don't post erotic images, and I certainly don't fake people's faces or do that kind of thing. I don't think that matters very much. But in Virginia, there's a law. There's a law. Well, that's the other article on the Loudoun School Board, and but it doesn't seem to have kept my history. There's the Loudoun County meeting history again. I'm trying to find the other article on the Virginia. Oh, because somehow it lost my. Here it is. I got it back. Yeah, Virginia has a law effective January 1, 2026, requiring that social media platforms not allow teens under 16 to use their facilities for more than an hour in a day. And it actually says there's language and this is on my own website. This is on my own blog, or I have an entry about it. And it also goes to a WJLA story about it right here, which I'll give you the reference to. And it also refers to the Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act. But the idea is that the platform must use neutral and commercial reasonable methods to verify users' age, and there's that we don't know what that would mean. That would the only way right now you can is to have a database at the state of people's ages, which is what you would have to do for these porn adult site laws, and that's why they've been objected to, like by Pornhub. We don't really have very good device verification yet, although that could be done. It also, but the platforms would be required to restrict the access to 1 hour a day somehow. Now, your cell phone keeps track of your, like your smartphone keeps track of your usage, or at least I get a report once a week. So smartphones can do that now. So they could probably do that, restrict age by age somehow. They could probably do that. um, and and then restrict the date, the use of data for the use of any data collection for only age verification. That was the other thing. I don't know how reasonably that law could be enforced. I don't think it would apply to just a flat site like me. I don't think I would ever have one person using it that long a day anyway. But, these laws are popping up and they could present a real problem if somebody really tries to enforce them. It doesn't sound like it's very enforcing. And just a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. Just generally problems that are going on right now. I haven't said much about it. The tariffs, and it's so unpredictable because it keeps changing. But generally, yes. Generally, we got to make more of our stuff at home, particularly when it comes to um, semiconductor boards or circuit boards and semiconductors and chips and that kind of thing. Because we depend way too much on Taiwan for that. We got to get more of our own rare earth, from places other than China, particularly at home, particularly lithium. Um, and and so an administration should have some kind of a policy to gradually require more stuff to be made at home. It's autarky indeed, but we're going to, that's the other thing that's happening. The world is not doing a very good job of planning for changes in the future, planning for climate change, flooding, possibly restrictions on driving gasoline powered cars in the future, maybe when driving alone, like me, possibly. Um, Various restrictions that could happen. Instead, nations are deciding to sort of play the acceleration game and make themselves immune to the rest of the world, which is what Putin is doing, which is what Trump seems to want to do with the United States, and taking very extreme positions, which might protect the rich and everything, but it is very, very dangerous. You could restrict consumer behavior, which what China tries to do with some sort of social credit score, rather than what group somebody belongs to or what minority group or or marginalized group somebody claims to belong to, is their own behavior, and keep track of it. You could wind up doing that, but that's the kind of thing we face as a world. Whether the world's going to function the way it had, we've gotten used to it functioning with the liberties we've had, whether it can forever, everywhere, when you see all the stuff, the chaos in many parts of the world, seems questionable. And I would also add, think about if we do have to escape Earth, if we still do wind up living on O'Neill cylinders at Lagrange points in the future, they would be very restricted environments. They would probably have very authoritarian kinds of governance for people who live in them. The something you could write a story, a science fiction story about that. And if you believe in reincarnation, maybe that would be your karma to live in that thing that you've written about the next time you're incarnated. Maybe that would happen. Maybe that's what's going to happen to me. I don't know. Um, but those are my thoughts for today, Memorial Day. But I just wanted to bring you up to date on that Loudoun County thing. It's been going on for several years. As I had said, I had gone to one of their meetings. I think it was in 2021, late 2021, when under Biden, and when things were calmer than they are now. We were coming out of the pandemic. It was as we were coming out of the pandemic that we were more aware of these issues in the schools, with gender identity, for example. And so that's what I have for this morning. And I do thank you for listening.